Hello everyone, this is Nicole Spohr for Spellbinders. Today I'm sharing a couple of cards showcasing ways to dress up your dies for maximum impact. I'll be using things like inks to add shading, some pins to add detail for eyes, as well as some other things to really make these images pop. I'm using the following dies to create my cards today: the Ella-Fant etched dies, the Sun and Clouds etched dies, the Simply Said Phrase Set 2 etched dies, as well as the Nestabilities, Celebrations, Pierced Circles, and Pierced Rectangles for my frames. To start, I'm going to die cut all of the pieces that I need for my cards. These cards are all die cuts except for a few stamped phrases or a stamped phrase on each card. First, I'm going to take those pierced rectangles and using the largest frame die as well as the little embossed dots or the pierced texture, I'm going to run these through the Spellbinders Platinum die cutting machine. I used a little post-it tape to hold these together to run them through the machine. Instead of embossing, I went ahead and left this as is. I really like it kind of simple this way. Next, I am going to take the second largest pierced circles die, and I'm only using the die, not the pierced design. And I'm going to go ahead and die cut this from that pierced rectangle. This is going to be the frame for the front of each card. Both cards are designed exactly the same. The only difference between the two cards is the elephant design that I'm using, and the greetings are going to be switched up just to show the versatility. Next, from a light gray cardstock, I am going to die cut the components for the elephant using the Ella-Fant etched dies. These dies are fantastic. You want to remember that for the elephant faces and the tail, you are going to want to go ahead and emboss these. So once you have die cut these shapes, you're going to want to use the tan and the purple mats to run those through and emboss the designs so you get that great trunk detail, the little hair detail, and the eye detail for those faces. Next, I am using a darker gray cardstock and a red cardstock to die cut the balloon from the Ella-Fant, and I'm using white cardstock and vellum to die cut the cloud shapes from the Die Delights Sun and Clouds dies. These have some awesome embossing on them. I love to mix both white cardstock and vellum for my clouds. We're going to be creating some little elephants sitting up in the clouds with a great dimensional greeting die cut underneath that, kind of framing them all up and really adding a fun look. Now the balloon also you want to use the embossing mats with, so you get that little highlight detail there on the balloon. I die cut the balloon from both dark gray and red cardstock. I'm going to be trimming off the top of the red balloon and keeping that and gluing it on top of the dark gray version so that the balloon is two-tone with the red balloon and gray string. Here are my little vellum clouds. Next, I have a piece of fun foam here. This is for the dimensional greeting, and I'm going to back the fun foam with stick it adhesive on both sides. This is going to instantly make my greeting a sticker. This is one of my favorite ways to create a dimensional sticker. I like to go ahead and run that through the Spellbinders Platinum machine to really get that adhesive to stick on the fun foam really well before I add the cardstock, or in this case glitter cardstock, and then die cut that dimensional greeting. I'm going to set all of the die cut components aside now and go ahead and start working on adding those finishing details to my die cut elephants. First, I am taking some Hickory Smoke Distress ink and inking up the edges of the elephant anywhere where there is a embossed area is going to especially hold that ink really well, or the edges, and it just adds some nice texture and dimension to these cute elephants. Next, I am taking a black glaze pen and adding detail to the eyes on the elephant, and I want to let that completely dry. The tusks are going to be adorned with a white pen to really make those stand out. I'll go ahead and move the face over to the side, and I want to work on inking up the rest of my first elephant. So the first elephant card I'm going to create is the front-facing elephant with the full face, not the side view. And we want to ink up his body and tail as well, so they really stand out and have some great dimension. You can see the difference between the elephant I've already inked and then the pieces I have not. The side view elephant is very similar, except we're going to just be placing the other head view there, and it kind of looks like this elephant is looking out to the side. And there's lots of different ways you can piece these together. So cute and fun. Both cards are going to feature that balloon. Now for my night sky, I have another piece of smooth white cardstock here, and I don't have to be too particular. I only need the inked area to be big enough to fill in that die cut circle frame that we created using the pierced rectangles and circle dies. I'm applying black soot, faded jeans, and peacock feathers distress oxide inks, and just working to get a really beautiful blend. I want this to look kind of like a night sky, but still have a little hint of color to it. Once I have the inking the way I want it to look, I'll take water from a distress sprayer and spritz this background. Now I did do this over to the side because I didn't want any water to get onto my elephants. And I'm going to let the water naturally wick away some of that ink, and it almost gives the illusion of a night sky with stars in it. I also inked up parts of the edges of the white cardstock clouds with Peacock Feathers Distress Oxide ink to give them a little dimension. And one of those white clouds is adhered to the background. I went ahead and put some foam adhesive squares on the back of my frame off camera, and I'm going to peel off all those backing pieces now and adhere this right over my background, which is immediately going to clean this up, and all you'll see is this beautiful night sky with a little cloud peeking through. These are nice thin foam adhesive squares, so it's not going to stick up real high, and it's still going to fit in an envelope really easily. I went ahead and inked up my additional white cloud, and I've grabbed my other vellum cloud here. And I'm going to go ahead and work on adhering my elephant. I'm just using some glue dots to kind of tuck the body of the elephant in between the clouds. So the cloud in the background and then the two clouds that'll be on the front of the card. I'm only adding adhesive dots on the head portion of the elephant so that the ears are kind of free and loose. And then I bent them up a little bit to give them that illusion of movement. I'm going to tuck my tail there back behind on the elephant. And here is that dimensional greeting die cut from the glitter cardstock and fun foam sandwich. Make sure everything is kind of lined up here, and then I'm going to go ahead and secure my clouds along that front edge of the card before we add some additional detail to the elephant, to the balloon, and finish up the card with the greetings. I want those clouds to slightly overlap in the front, and I'm hiding the adhesive on the vellum cloud back behind the white cardstock adhesive. And this frames up that bottom edge of the opening perfectly. I'm going to add just a tiny dab of Ranger Multi-Matte Medium glue underneath the vellum cloud, and then put something heavy on that like an acrylic block to hold that glue in place while it dries. The little areas that did not just pop out from the die cut scripty greeting. I'm using the tool-in-one to just grab those and pop them out. They're a little sticky since they have the stick-it adhesive and fun foam. Not to mention the glitter cardstock. They die cut beautifully, they just like to stick inside there, so you have to manually pop those out. I've already stamped and embossed an additional greeting on a black cardstock strip that I'm going to trim down a little bit here. And this is going to be the whole greeting for my card. So the main greeting is this beautiful die cut greeting from the Spellbinders Phrase Set 2. And then the kind of sub greeting is I think you're Ella-Fantastic. I loved that the greetings really worked with these cute elephant dies so well. And I'm going to layer those both kind of overlapping parts of the clouds, and I want the glitter dimensional greeting to overlap my cardstock strip. And I was having trouble lining it up, so I like to kind of flip it upside down sometimes. It helps with getting it as straight as possible. Now, originally I thought maybe a Copic marker would work to add a little color to the cheeks, and I really did not like that. I thought it faded into the background too much. I added some little white dots to the cheeks, but I left it in here to show how we can fix that. So I'm going to let that sit there for just a minute. I've trimmed the red tail off the red balloon, and I'm going to glue the balloon in place over the gray. And I skipped back over to the eyes, taking a fine tip pin and adding some eyelashes. I think that gives a fun little look, especially if this card is going to be to a girl or a woman. Sometimes I like to add little eyelashes. I think they add a really fun feminine touch. Here's my finished balloon. Now I love that little highlight area on the balloon, and I'll show you how I'm going to decorate that in a minute as well. So now I'm going to take some Polychromos colored pencils in white and pink and color in that inside area of the ear. And I'm just kind of doing this messy. I'm also using these same two colors for the cheeks on my elephant. And then I'll take Gamsol and a stump pencil and blend this out to get rid of those pencil lines. We want it to be really soft and natural and not really harsh. So I'm not taking a whole lot of time when adding the colored pencils here. I'm kind of just scribbling them down and then blending them out with that Gamsol, and can go over those as many times as I need to. In fact, I thought it was a little too pink, so I'm going to go back over with a little more white. Add some white detail to the trunk on the elephant as well. Gives a nice little highlight. I'm using a little fired brick and some of the Hickory Smoke Distress inks on the edges of my balloon. I started with the fired brick, but I really felt like it just kind of, you couldn't really see too much of a difference. So I ended up taking my Hickory Smoke ink blending tool. I didn't add any additional ink to it and went ahead and just kind of darkened the edges, and then took a white pen over the highlight area on the balloon. Now, while I'm doing this, I wanted to show that's what I would do if I wasn't going to do anything else to the balloon. I like to add glossy accents or Nuvo crystal glaze to balloons to give them that glossy, high shine finish. When you do that, you lose a lot of the white pen detail. So I will wait until the Nuvo crystal glaze that I'm using, or if you're using glossy accents, either one, is completely dry. I'm just covering this whole balloon with the Nuvo crystal glaze. It will dry completely clear. Once this is all the way dry, near the end of the video, I will show you that I'll take my white pen again and color right on the hardened Nuvo crystal glaze to get that highlight and really make it pop. Now I did take a really thin piece of gold string, wrap it around the base of my balloon, and I'm going to tie it in a knot, being super, super careful because that glaze is still wet. And then I'm going to take some Nuvo crystal drops in Simply White and also silver Moondust and create little stars all over the top portion of my design. So some in the background, some on the frame, some even on the clouds. Just kind of scatter these throughout. I purposely chose the silver Moondust and white so they didn't take away from the rest of the design, but still add a little something to it. A little touch of glitter, some nice bright white. The Simply White is probably my all-time favorite. It's a beautiful opaque white and it works for so many different things. And once I have all of my little stars glittering in the sky, I can really just go ahead and set this aside to dry completely. I like to let my Nuvo, anything I've used Nuvo crystal drops on, set and harden for at least overnight. So I let both of my cards kind of sit overnight. I came back to them the next day and finished up all of the finishing detail, like adding this frame to a card base, tying off the balloon strings and things like that. If any of your drops are not quite circles, I like to take a craft knife and kind of clean them up while they're still wet. So let's go ahead and put the other one together. I've sped this up a little bit since this is basically the same thing, just simply the other elephant and another way to put together this adorable little elephant. I decided that the hickory smoke ink that I added the day before or earlier wasn't quite dark enough, so I went ahead and added a little bit more to darken up the edges on this elephant. I'm inking everything just like I did for the first card. Clean up my craft mat so I don't get any of these pieces into anything. Now I went ahead and added the black ink to the eye, but unfortunately I smeared the eye. And that would have ruined the whole head. I could have die cut and embossed another one, but instead I decided to take that mistake and just color in the eye a little bit bigger, which I really ended up kind of liking. I think that's really kind of cute. I added eyelashes to this eye as well, plus a little white highlight. And then I'm going to have this particular elephant holding that balloon in its trunk. So I've just kind of switched up the position of the elephant. The elephant that was front facing was positioned to the left of the circle, and this little elephant is positioned to the right. Again, using my colored pencils to add some detail to the cheek, kind of blend that out with a Gamsol stump pencil. If it blends out a little too much, you can always go back over it. Take a white pen and add some little white dots to the cheek. I used the Celebrate greeting from the Phrase Set 2. And this time I was a little bit smarter and wrapped that string around my balloon before I added the Nuvo crystal glaze. And then I will just apply the crystal glaze right over the top of this and let this dry completely before I wrap it around and tie it off and secure it in a little knot on the front of my balloon. Again, I'm going to take those Nuvo crystal drops in Silver Moondust and Simply White and add little stars all over the background. I love with the Nuvo crystal drops you can create little drops in all different sizes. Once I have this all in place, I am going to show taking a white pen and going back over the balloon like I mentioned earlier and adding that highlight area back in so that the balloon really stands out and shows off and that you see that great little highlight. Thanks for joining me today for these cards showcasing ideas on how to dress up your dies for maximum impact. If you have any questions about these cards, please leave them in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to the Spellbinders YouTube channel for more instructional videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.